Welcome to Curious Minds, where we bring your curiosities to life. In today's video, we'll be talking about a man we'll call James. This is James's very disturbing story, almost comical, but very true. We all have difficulty sleeping. Some of us take medicine for this, and some of us find a hobby. Not James. James found himself battling sleepless nights in the past. No matter what he did, he always found himself struggling to relax. So he decided to take up night walks. He lived in a rather safe neighborhood. He never once felt threatened on his night walks. They calmed his mind and allowed him to drift away to sleep. One faithful night, on cue, James woke up in the middle of the night, his body ready for its nightly walks. He climbed into walking attire and made his way out onto the street. He began to walk. 100 feet, 200 feet, and so on. While he was walking, he noticed a figure ahead of him. Naturally, he moved over to the other side of the street. Who would be out this late? He would. He thought, maybe this figure was also struggling to sleep. Maybe he was on a night walk. As he approached the figure, he was able to notice defining features. The man was tall, very tall. He was also dressed really well, as if he were making his way back from a wedding or an event of some sort. As James made his way closer, more defining features came to light. The man was clearly quite skinny, and probably hadn't noticed him yet since he was facing the floor. As James began to approach from the opposite side of the street, his footsteps became apparent. The man responded. He looked up at James. James then noticed his most defining feature, his smile. The man faced James with a bone-chilling smile. James felt eerie. The smile began to widen, stretching unnaturally across his face. James began to walk faster. Noticing from behind, the man began to follow, but not with a normal stride, but a dance. The man moved in a jerky manner, as if controlled by strings. James wasn't planning on sticking around much longer. He picked up his stride and decided to head home. The man followed, keeping up with James's pace, his smile wider now, his movements jerky and odd. He chased after James. James made it to his house, exhausted from this chase. He lunged inside, locking the door behind him. In a panic, he looked through his window, only to see the man on his front lawn, smiling. Fear came over James. He had now shown this psychotic man where he lived. For weeks after this affair, James noted seeing the smiling man lurking in the shadows. On his way to and from work and to simple places like the mall, James noted seeing the smiling man standing in alleyways staring at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, and when that feeling overcame him, he would always find the smiling man staring at him from the distance. James was losing his mind. Friends and family began to stop believing his story. He began to ask himself if he'd made it all up. Was he just tired? Could he be schizophrenic? James gave up night walks and avoided going out after dark. At least this way, he could avoid running into the smiling man. He cocooned inside. Whenever he left his house, he felt like he was being watched. One night, a few months after the incident, James was woken up by a strange noise coming from outside. He got out of bed to investigate. As he looked through his bedroom window, he couldn't help but be overcome with immense fear as he found the smiling man looking back. Like a deer in headlights, James recounts freezing in fear. He watched as the smiling man began to climb the side of his house, his face reaching James's window. Through one swift motion, James grabbed his lampshade and smashed it against the window, shattering the glass and sending the smiling man on a sharp fall to the ground. James grabbed his phone and dialed 911, something he arguably should have done earlier. When the police arrived onto the scene, the smiling man was gone. The area was searched, but no evidence was found. That would be the last time James would see the smiling man. James lived in fear for the first few years, always looking over his shoulder, consumed by fear. His relationships dissolved. He trusted no one. he struggled to develop in his work life. He was in constant paranoia. One day, he decided to take action. He hired a private investigator to find the smiling man. He handed over all evidence and examined all possibilities. Who could it be? What could it be? The person would have had to have studied him. Maybe it was someone he knew. The biggest question he needed answered was, would the smiling man be coming back? The investigation came back with nothing. James took this as a sign to move on. He retained his vigilance. He never traveled at night. The feeling of being watched was never shaken. But he began to make inroads at work and in his personal life. He installed security cameras at his house and kept pepper spray with him at all times. He began to take ownership of his situation. Until one day, many years after that fateful night, he received a package on his doorstep marked, "Open me." A blanket of cold overcame his body as he took the package inside. This could be anything, he told himself. He grabbed a knife, slicing the package open. A note fell out. On the note was a cartoon drawing of a smartly dressed man outside of a house, smiling. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and consider subscribing. We'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, stay curious.